Hello, good evening, everyone. Apologies, our closed session ran a little long, so we're starting a little late. But we called our meeting to order in closed session so we can begin our meeting. Just wanted to start off by saying, welcome everyone to the start of the school year. Hope you all had great summers, and we welcome you all back. I just also want to extend a thank you to our educators, our staff, our administration for getting us ready and prepared for the beginning of the school year. So with that, I'll turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Adderhold, for some comments.
Good evening, everyone. As Ms. Juliana said, I just wanted to welcome back our students, staff, and families back to the 23-24 school year. We've had a strong opening. Great appreciation to our district administration for the work they did over the summer, and our 12-month staff in order to make sure that we were prepared. A tremendous amount of work happened over the summer with respect to our facilities, and a big thanks to our building and grounds department, our technology departments, and transportation for the work they did to prepare for this school year. Our schools are off and running with respect to the year. Our teams are very much engaged. Our student activities are well underway. We do have an event that's coming up on October 6th where we're going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of High School South. So we have our High School South homecoming game that our High School South homecoming, the United team will be playing. So we welcome members of the community to join us out there for the 50th anniversary of High School South. And with that, I'll turn it back to the president and go prepare for comments.
Thank you, Dr. Adderhold. So now we will turn to a referendum and residential development update. And Dr. Adderhold will be giving us this update and presentation.
Good evening to members of the Board of Education, members of the public, and members in attendance this evening. I wanted to provide an update on both residential growth and facilities updates. So I'm going to start with some facilities updates. It's primarily going to be referendum based, but I did want to show a couple slides and give acknowledgement to our building and grounds department, ABM team for the work that they did throughout the summer, in addition to referendum based projects. For some of the projects, it's very photo heavy, so I'll go through it relatively quick until I get to the residential growth update. For members of the board that are in the front, if you want to move to the side to see better, by all means, please do. And this will be on the district website tomorrow. So I'm going to start just with our district mission and vision, mission statement. Again, it's always to empower all learners to thoughtfully contribute to a diverse and changing world with confidence, strength, character, and love of learning. And our mission statement is alive in everything that we do. And we talk a lot about how our mission needs to be defined in our budget. So what we value shows up in our budget, and making sure that our staff and our students have appropriate facilities is one of those. So I want to just highlight, I'll start with South. Here's our big global picture of South, our aerial drone photo. We are fortunate that the bubble, which was not a referendum project, but the bubble was finally completed in the spring after months and months of work. Great appreciation to the swim team and swim coaches for the work they had to do to modify their schedules last season. Beautiful area, visual of the front entrance of South, right? So we're fully involved and moved into all aspects of South at this point. There was just the 50th photo taken last week. Ms. Sincata, principal of South, she's in the audience this evening, arranged of the entire student body. And the staff on the opening 2 days took a drone photo of the 50th. So that's the High School South faculty on the 50th anniversary from the field. So that main hallway, right? So this is now our entry point as you look down from the main entrance, main hall on the right, main building, office, attendance right there on the right. It used to be you would walk down the front corridor and you'd walk into the carpeted section of Commons 1. We did work over the summer separate. Our building and grounds team worked with an outside vendor to redo Commons 1, the hallway between the theater and the art rooms, and the 3 art rooms. Over different breaks this year, Commons 2 and 3 will be done to match Commons 1. Incredibly brightens up the facility, and you would imagine that with lunches and with carpet, it smells a lot better too. With respect to the dance studio, the dance floor has had work done over the summer to make it in alignment with the floor at North, 2 different vendors, 2 different contracts. Now the floor's matched. There's just some final surfacing with Marley floors that needs to be done, but you get a sense of the beautiful dance facility over at South. A walk-in freezer box was not in the referendum, but was some work that was done as a result of some funds that became available through the food purchasing and some of the federal rules. So we had to look at the project of what could be done over the summer. The freezer was updated. The fridge will be updated next summer. There was tremendous lead time with some of these purchases. But this part of the project was completed on time. So we have that done and operational. Over at North, the new culinary space has been completed and open. A gorgeous facility now matching that over at High School South. So we do have this open on time for the opening of school. So our culinary space, culinary arts, has now moved into the new facility. You get a sense of the workstation that the kids are now experiencing their culinary arts classrooms in. The library has been reopened. Again, beautiful facility. We're really proud of the work. We have 5 of the libraries now complete, with 9 total being done. Stacks have been taken out, redone, new carpet, new lighting, new ceiling, new paint. The stacks have been lowered, new stacks. So you have line of sight throughout the facility. You can see the beautiful seating areas. The library is very much a centerpiece now, alive and well when you go into the space. This is outside of the Knight's Armory, which is the school store, is there behind. You can see the windows for the store. You can also see that from the hallway. But we wanted to create a little serving space for some of the purchases that they do from the library space in. And now just our team over the summer did some refinishing work of some of the floors. Just one example of the wrestling room over at North that was redone by our district team. High School North also had the pool needed to be repaired, and because of the needing to use the pool at such a high clip due to the pool being down at South, we had to time this between the end of the swim season and the beginning of the summer season. So in that small window, they were able to drain a couple 100,000 gallons of water working with the township officials, do all the repair work, patch the pool. You may have heard of some of the cloudiness that had been in the pool. Sometimes that can be chlorine, and sometimes that can be resurfacing that's needed. The pool needed to have some surfacing work done. That was all accomplished, and we were able to open in time for the summer schedule. Over at Millstone River, we also were able to complete the library project there, a sense of the new library. Again, beautiful facility for our students. Reopened, I think, the last 3-4 weeks of the school year. So again, all pictures inside the library for our kids. Now the media center and the main office entrance points are directly across from each other now, and you can see the way it sort of pops. Obviously 2 side photos there, but the way it looks is they're parallel from each other. Also, our district team has continued their efforts to replace carpeting and add floor, and our in-district team did flooring projects over at Millstone River. They also did some refinishing of the stage, and you get a sense of the good work that they're doing to try to update the facilities around the district. Over at Wyckoff, we have the expansion project. It's in 3 phases. Phase 1 and 2 are complete. Phase 3 is very much underway. This is the entrance point, which will be the new main entrance in the future. Currently, if you were to go to Wyckoff, this is currently closed. The parking lot is open for faculty parking. We're hoping to be able to open that very soon, but we're still having to walk around because this part is under construction. We expect it to be completed by January, but the library is open. That was completed the last week of school. We got the approvals and the furniture and the books moved back in. So again, here's our Wyckoff. They did a great job matching school colors and working to beautify that space. And our librarians were very much engaged throughout. So in this case, Annika Taylor, our librarian over there, has done some work to make it her own already, live into the space. The only thing that's missing at the library currently is there's some temporary lighting in place, as some of the light fixtures have tremendous lead times right now. At Town Center, we have a media center renovation project that just began, so the schematics, we have a contractor on site the library has been gutted, so you know, sense of the schematics, and currently this is what the library looks like. So we were able to move and create a makeshift library inside the facility using one of the classrooms, taking some of the stacks that were being emptied, moving those stacks into a classroom and creating a makeshift library inside the school. It's by no means the same, but it is a library available to the students during the school day. Separate and apart from the referendum, we're also building a sensory playground over at Town Center for our students with autism. The sensory playground is behind the building, behind some of our autism programs in the back of the building there. So if you were to drive around the bus loop in the back, it's that fenced-in area. Pavement was taken out, crushed stone brought in from a drainage perspective, and we're waiting for the rubberized pour material that gets brought in. So there's a couple inches of rubberized pour from a safety perspective for the students. But the facility is going to look beautiful when complete. We're hoping to have this done by the first week of October. With the weather, we had to postpone over the last weekend, as they weren't able to do all the drainage work that they were hoping to accomplish this past weekend. So we're hoping to be able to reschedule with the contractor within the next 2 weeks. At Dutch Neck, library reopened, so another beautiful library project. Maker spaces in all the libraries have been included. We also, our internal team did a refurbishment of the amphitheater. There were some kind of safety concerns that had been raised regarding splintering and some beam boards that needed to be replaced. Our in-district team took that on, did all the repainting, sanding, and whatnot. So they did a real nice job to open that space for the kids. Over at Hawk and at Village, there's library projects that will take place starting mid-year. There's a large lead time for some of the items, so in this case, they'll be starting in the 2024, hopefully in January, or at least shortly into the spring of 2024. But we're aiming for contracts. The contract's been authorized. The contractor is ordering materials, because again, we're just seeing tremendous lead times on these projects with steel and shelving and whatnot, lighting fixtures, some HVAC upgrades, whatnot. Again, lots of lead times, so we're trying to plan that out, and also the permitting component. Our in-district team took on the cafeteria, and you can see on the picture on the left, the old floor had been removed, all the built-in tables removed. They did repainting of the space. Our art teachers are helping us come in and finish some of the murals that were impacted by the tables coming down, to complete those paintings that were impacted by the tables coming off the wall, new flooring, and again, just a lot of nice work by our team to try to brighten up the facility for our staff and for our kids. This is an example of just the polishing of the trouser floors that happens all over the district. At Village Library, again, same timeline as Hawk. Over at Community, our in-district team took on our culinary arts classroom. Was not part of the referendum, is one of the only areas. You can see the blue countertops, and it had tremendously outdated kitchen equipment, and they did new floors, sanding of the cabinets, new countertops, new appliances. Space is beautiful. Culinary arts teachers very happy. Grover Middle School, they did a lot of work with respect to refurbishing floors, but they also took on some hallway projects. So back by the library and back towards seventh grade wing, excuse me, they did some beautiful new flooring matching so again, our in-district team did tremendous work. We have a great ops foreman crew led by Thomas Daly, Lewis and Craig. Just again, great work by that team in partnership with our ABM partners. A lot of coordination has to be done when you're moving furniture out of entire cafeterias and entire areas and entire art rooms. If you can imagine moving art rooms and supply closets of art rooms, just a lot of work, 20 plus people to move that kind of stuff out. And then just tremendous coordination with the contractors and our in-district team and our architects, engineers, and our construction managers, along with Chris and the administration, to work through all the referendum projects with respect to the impacts to the buildings to make sure we had those facilities up and running for the students. So really, as we think about the referendum, we're really down to a couple library projects. There's some punch list items, and there's things under warranty, and things happen as we have rainstorms and whatnot, and so we had some opening HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning challenges. But at the end of the day, really, most of the projects, we have the Wyckoff project underway. We have 3 library projects that are kicking off. Obviously, Town Center's underway, so Wyckoff and Town Center are really our active projects. And then we have Village and Maurice Hawk libraries that will take place. And we're hoping by the time we're talking this time next year that our library projects are coming to conclusion. We're able to move students into the Village and the Town Center, Village and Hawk projects. It's really just going to be a matter of the timing of materials, supply chain, and the contractors' coordination. But we are hoping around this time next year to be finishing the majority, if not all, referendum projects. So it's been a tremendous lift since we started, and we wanted to do a little bit of a look back to say, okay, so some of these residential projects, this is growth in the 2 townships, what's still out there. So I wanted to sort of go through some of the projects. So the Woodstone property is completed, 443 apartments. It's at 85% rented at this point, based on the phasing, so it didn't all finish at one time, but it's complete and in active rental. Our next step, I should share, is to do some analysis of how many kids are coming from each of those apartments in each of those new developments. So we'll be working on that as a next step. Impacting Hawk, Village, Grover, and South, again, 443 apartments and completed. The Manili project, or Toll Brothers project, this has been completed. This was 91 townhomes and apartments, extended stay in the Project Freedom development. So this is, again, completed. Ellsworth Center, 30 apartments completed. So this has also been a project that we've been watching. Some big ones to come. The Transit Village, underway, site work and roundabout are being worked on. We are still talking 800 units. That's broken down by 515 apartments, 150 townhomes, and 135 age restricted when it builds out. So site work's underway, so next thing will be starting to actually start building in some of the phases. Then we have the Heritage Village, which is formerly named American Properties, or the Thompson property. This is the 193 townhomes that is right on Old Trenton Road. It's also known as the Towns. You may have heard about this recently, as they had some pre-sale, and you had to come with a pre-approval letter from a mortgage company and 10% down. These are listing between 800 and low 900s, 2 and 3 bedroom townhomes. Permits for soils and engineering is issued. Occupants expected in the late 23-24 school year. Potential impacts to be determined. Sending past Dutch Neck Village, Grover South. At this time, Dutch Neck is without any rooms to grow into. So we're going to have to be looking at some short-term solutions when we think about the way in which these properties could impact our school community. Toll Brothers or Garden Homes, this is one of the Lowe's Center's properties, also been known as Duck Pond Associates. It's Hawk Village, Grover South. This had a reduction from our original referendum projection from 625 to 347 due to some site constraints, but we do expect some potential impact for residents by 23-24, into the school year, into next school year. Princeton Executive Park, or otherwise known as the Lofts, 300. This is a 2-phased project over by Meadow Road. 320 apartments in phase 1. Then there's phase 4 that comes in the 2025 time period with 326 additional apartments. Potential impact on the first phase could be by the end of the school year, sending towards Hawk, Village, Grover, and South. 400 steps. This is Ellsworth 2. Number raised from low 100s to 180 apartments. Sending past to be determined, timeline to build undetermined. So didn't go too far with this one. On the Plainsboro side, there's been some increases, but nothing necessarily yet, right? And so we've known of the potential Princeton Forest Hill Village for some time, 394 multifamily residential units. It has been purchased and owned by Chase Bank. Chase Bank is talking about doing some development review in the spring. The site plan review with the site plan board or planning board is going to be in the fall of '23. So Chase Bank, as the property owner, is moving forward with some site plan review and development plan review in the spring of '24. So this very much can take off at any point, but it hasn't for many years. So to be watched, not to be an immediate concern. Princeton Nurseries, though, at the time of the referendum, was not something we talked about, right? Princeton Nurseries was an unknown to us back then. 950 units, 730 apartments, townhomes, 200 age-restricted, 20 single-family homes. This is out in South Brunswick and Plainsboro border, with some of the property being owned by the same property owner into South Brunswick. General development plan is complete. Fiscal impact study is underway. They're estimating 3 to 4 years before they start with a 6-year build-out. Again, 950 units, of which over 750 will impact our school district. And then Fusion. I don't have a better name than Fusion. But it's a mixed-use location by Nova Nordis in the hospital, 500 residential units, 430 apartments that will impact our school district. So just in the Plainsboro side alone, while we've dropped 300-something units on that one development in West Windsor, we went up over 1,300 units on the Plainsboro side of the town, based on our referendum projections. Of course, the big property that's always being bantered about is the former property of Howard Hughes. I'm forgetting the name of the district, of the owner currently, but that's where we're hearing a lot about trucks and truck traffic and whatnot. And that's for other bodies to determine. I'll just simply say it's just a property that we're watching, because if it doesn't become warehouses, it will become something else. So if that reverts back to properties, it's a big property. It's over 600 units, 600 acres. So if that reverts back to being considered for the next round of affordable housing, the prior developer had lots of plans for over 1,500 units. If it ever goes back away from trucks, we'll be talking about car traffic. So pick your traffic, but we'll be talking about congested roads all the same. Just total summation of where we are based on the potential number of units. We're still talking about those that were projected based on current development numbers and either completed or in the pipeline of 4,770 units. That's apartment, townhomes, condos, and single-family homes. Those are the big ones. Those are the numbers that the big ones. There's a couple small developments here and there, four single-family homes, and I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the big, monstrous properties. And still, if we just apply historical yields to those numbers, not the move-in yields, but the historical yields by apartment, by townhome, by single-family home, to the very apartments, and they have different yields by town, right? And that's all going back into the demographic study that we did, right? Using those same yields from back then, it would be 1,900 students, right? 1,926. So we're still talking about, yes, have we dipped in the short term? Yes. Did the demographer anticipate a dip? Yes. Did we dip below that number? Yes. Were there other factors at play? Well, I'm sorry that at the time of the demographic study, we didn't predict the global pandemic. We didn't impact what that would mean to international enrollments, what that would mean to our kindergarten numbers for 4 or 5 years in a row. You know, remember, West Windsor-Plainsboro is a pretty pricey community. A lot of families don't buy their starter home here and have children, newborns here. So when you track birth data, very hard to project kindergarten in WWP, because birth data is based on home residence at the time of birth. So if our families are moving in with families, birth data does not project K, because we can't track it, because it geocodes back to the home in which the child is born, or address in which they're born, right, living in when they're born, right? So we have challenges, we have historical numbers, and now we have post-COVID kindergarten. So we are seeing our numbers move up. We're just under 9,100 as of today, which is up just under 100 from where we were end of last year. And we'll see how we continue to track. We have families scheduled to continue to register. But we have families that will inevitably move out of the community. So we do have many different times in the year where we see enrollment increase and decrease. The key data that we always consistently report on, though, long-term, and which impacts our fiscal, is the October 15th, excuse me, the October 15th date. That is the state date in which enrollment is based on. So if you look at October 15th and it reverts back to, if it's a weekend, it goes back to the Friday, right? So that October 15th date is the date that matters from a funding perspective for all school districts in New Jersey. So some of the next round of affordable housing, just to keep this out there, is in 2025. So this is going to be about the time you'll start hearing the politicization of developers, and every property is going to potentially have apartments and townhomes on it, because the towns have obligations to meet, and most of the townships have done some really nice work to be thinking forward and planning towards their next round of obligation. So a lot of this thinking has already been worked on by the township. Whether it's public or not, the township is working toward their plans. I have every confidence that they are, but it could have some impacts of properties that we're either aware of or not aware of. So time will tell. We're going to have to watch that. With next steps for recommendations and next steps for the district, we're going to be looking through and working with our transportation department and our technology department regarding analyzing the school the completed developments and reviewing the yields to compare how many kids are coming into those developments, like Woodstone with 443 units. I believe it was a 0.58 yield, so are we getting over 200 kids coming out of that development at this time, and getting a sense of that. So that's some of our next work this fall. We'll be updating capacity numbers by school expansion. So we have schools that have expanded. Our capacity is based not just on the number of rooms, but how the rooms are used. So not only do we have to look at the number of rooms, but if some of the rooms are used for special programs that have class caps by code, then we have to utilize capacity for the program as the maximum capacity for that room. So it's not just how many rooms do you have and how big are those rooms. It's not enough. It's how is the room being utilized. And then there's short-term, long-term, right? So as we're thinking about Dutch Neck, for instance, with the town's property coming on board and those townhomes coming in play, if they start sending a high yield towards Dutch Neck, we might have to look at some of the sending paths to Dutch Neck to say, is there any other those sending paths that go closer to a different school, and maybe make some slight shifts and tweaks regarding some neighborhood pathways and some bus pathways. Short-term, long-term issues might be programmatic decisions. Where do certain programs land? Which schools do they go to? Program decisions might also be grade level configurations, right? We're going to have to, if we do get that bubble that comes through, depending on also what happens with the bounce back post-pandemic or post-vaccine of the pandemic's still here, numbers, are we going to see some more international community come back, with the companies sending more of the community back here? With respect to long-term considerations, we're going to have to look at where some of our instructional programs land and which facilities they are in. We're going to have to look at our sending paths with respect to elementary enrollment and some of our elementary programming. We're going to potentially have to consider some additional expansion. And I'm not suggesting schools, plural, but we're going to have to look at school pathways, potentially a property, potentially a grade, like something at a grade level. Middle school, high school, we've added a lot of capacity with respect to size, especially at South Grover and Community. North currently has a lower enrollment than South, so they can absorb more students into North right now at their sending pathway. But there's been a time where North was close to capacity, and we were at one point talking about expansions at North. So, we'll see where things go. We're gonna have to keep monitoring. The potential redistricting, I want to use the R word here because, one of the ways you balance the not building is by considering how your facilities are utilized and where certain neighborhood paths go. So if you have 3 rooms in one school and there's no rooms in another, right now Hawk has some rooms and Dutch Neck has none. So a short-term solution before the growth comes, and Transit Village has a couple of years to full build out, but I have other developments that are going on the market now. Do we shift the path for a couple of years, knowing that we're gonna have to make another change down the road? There was a time in West Windsor-Plainsboro for a period of 5 to 7 years where sending pass changed almost every year. Right? We're not there right now, but could we have to get there? We might have to. We might have to consider that. And innovation is more like at the high school, middle school level. There's certain programs that I don't think, we can look at different types of facilities. We can take a look at offset size a day. The state will not let us use virtual programming. Now we're half-day in-person, half-day virtual. That's currently not an option. There's some bills pending, but it doesn't really go that far as innovative work. It really requires legislative changes. Lastly is just the immediate concern is growth coming heavy at Hawk, heavy at Dutch Neck. Village Grover South sending area has just a ton of property coming at it. So school pass and district structure is something that's gonna have to be looked at. And programs like DLI, ELL, our special education programs, which occupy classes above and beyond in some schools, looking at where those paths go is something we're gonna have to look at, but I'm not suggesting they're the ones that change. I'm just saying we're gonna have to look at all those kind of district structures and process. Purchasing of property, right now we do not own property as a district for any kind of expansion. Most, if not all, of our properties are built out. So when we think about our physical plant, could we build something at North? Yes. Do we need to build something at the high school level today? No. Right, middle schools have both been built out that they could handle 5 teams per grade level. Currently, we have 4 teams per grade level. Right, so we're in a good shape at our 2 middle schools for the future growth that's coming. The elementary, though, as we've added programs, something we have done is we had this extra space. One is we've added K, and we brought a ton of special education programs back in district. Students that used to go out of district are now in district, which is awesome. We should have the students in district. But there's program space required for all those programs. From a community perspective, we're saving district dollars on tuition by keeping students in programs in district. So there is a district savings for keeping students in district and building programs in district. But there is an impact to the physical plant, which is there's rooms necessary for those programs. So purchasing property is something that we may have to look at with respect to the elementary schools to try to look at a future site. Again, there's no room here at Village. There's limited space at Millstone, and you might say, well, look at Millstone, it's got a ton of fields around it, but there's a wetlands buffer around it, right? So it's not as much space as you might think when you add the wetlands buffer into that. Town Center is near build out. Wyckoff is near build out. Dutch Neck, you'd have to go closer to the neighborhood homes. You'd have to take out the playground. You'd have to push back, take out half the field, right? So you'd really impinge upon the community and you'd have to think about the impacts to the neighborhood as well as the site. So I really, at this time, would not recommend any consideration at Dutch Neck. And back during the referendum build, when we gave these presentations, we said there's a possibility to build a bigger section on the back of Hawk. But again, that would change the road behind, it would change the playground, it would take out a big section of the field, and we really don't recommend going much bigger, because how big should an elementary school get? Should a K-3 school crest 1,000? And that's where we would be if we built out further in Hawk in the future. So that is not something, we really do find ourselves in a position where our K-6 school, or K-5 schools, our 6 K-5 schools are near physical build out. So if we're there, the only other option we have is thinking about property. If we acquire property to build a facility, will clearly require a referendum. The district will never have 30 to 50 million, and I use large numbers because it will be some, depending on how big you build, it will be, figure $1 million a classroom, plus the space for the gyms, the spaces for cafeterias, whatnot. and then what programs go there, the number of bathrooms, the number of offices, the number of support staff, all impacts the costs. So a lot of big thinking for the future, but the next steps are going to be looking at the yields and looking at capacity. And with that, I'll conclude that for the night, but I'll please answer any questions I can from the board.
Any questions from the board? Just making sure. Bill?
Liz?
I just want to thank you for this presentation. I mean, it's a lot of information to absorb, digest, to think through. So thank you. I'm glad to know that's going to be posted on the district website and available.
Thank you. And we clearly can revisit this topic as the board sees fit, and we'll be talking about some of these very topics as we update capacity and whatnot in committee meetings. So there'll be opportunity then for the committee reports to feedback to the other committee members, the board members, but also to the public.
Dr. I have a quick question. So on the numbers, we had there 1,900 potential students. I know some of the developments were completed
Right.
already.
Completed
Do we?
in the 1477, 4,770.
Oh, okay, got it. So are any of those potential students, those numbers, already here from the completed developments, or are we expecting them this school year, and if so, how many?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So the three completed I mentioned are still, I reported them in the 4,770. So the anticipated potential number are reflected in the 1926. What we now need to do is cross-reference all the different roads through Versatrans, our transportation software, and run an analysis by address in the transportation software to those developments to then see the total student yield. Not all of them are at full build-out or full rental, so there may be more to come. And
Okay.
of course, obviously, as families transition, that's a moving target. But we want to see of the potential number of units that have come, or the number of units out of that 4,770. If we have 600 are built, so it's really 4,170 are the potential, and 600 of them are built. Of that 600, how many kids are here? And that's the next level work.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, again, last check, any other questions? Okay, all right, thank you, Dr. Ederhold.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us now to the first opportunity for public comments. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. This public comment period shall be limited to 60 minutes. Are there any public comments?
Hi, welcome back, everyone. You've done a great job in getting the schools ready, and the students are, I'm sure, all excited for a new year. Linda Jeevers, 20 Hawthorne Drive, Princeton Junction, just speaking as a resident. It's a very good presentation. Just one suggestion, that maybe the presentation can go to our legislative leaders, because I think they need to be aware of the numbers, what is happening here in our district, and probably all the districts that they represent, because as was mentioned, the third round of affordable housing would begin in 2025. We don't seem to know what the impact or what those obligations will be now, but we're just trying to build from the third round, which is 1999 through to 2025. So with all the thousands of units being built and the thousands of students arriving, how are we going to manage all this if we're going to start a fourth round and there's going to be the high numbers again? I mean, how is that going to work? And I think that's a big question. I go down to the League of Municipalities each year in November. There's always like 300 people in this big room about affordable housing updates, and there really isn't much. They don't know. And no one seems to want to deal with it, except that it goes to the courts. And then some judge will look at the formulas maybe there'll be changes, but the legislative leaders, the governor, they don't seem to be taking any action. And COA is not up and running, so where do you go? So I would just, just keep the legislators informed about the realities of what's going on here. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Okay, with that, I will close the public comment portion of the meeting.
Just to follow up to Ms. Jeever's comments, and thank you for the comment and the suggestion. Just want to build on that, because one thing that's important for the public to know is right now there's not only are we talking about the next round of affordable housing, but the school funding formula is also starting to become in question. And with that, the only mechanism under the law currently for a school district to increase based on enrollment is what's called an SGLA, or spending growth limitation adjustment. When your enrollment exceeds a 10% residential growth in 1 year, you can get an adjustment for additional staffing. Outside of that, you have to figure out the staffing element within the existing budget. So if we have 9,100 students, if we have 85 students come in, 850 students come in, there is no SGLA. We have to figure out how to staff from our existing budget a growth of 850 students. So that, to give a sense of that, divide that number by 20 on average, right? And that's how many growth teachers you would need, right? So 40 teacher growth at a basic starting salary of low 60s plus family plan or benefit plan, you're talking about 85,000 a person times 40, right? That's a lot of growth salary with no mechanism to add that. So as Ms. Jeevers is referring to the challenges about the unknown impact to us is also the staffing element. There is not a mechanism. So I just want to raise that because it's a big area of concern as we move forward with growth. We are going to have to be careful about how that growth staff impacts our budget.
Thank you, Dr. Adholm. All right, we'll now go to the committee reports. I'll start with Administration and Facilities Committee. Dana?
Hello, good evening. The Administration and Facilities Committee met on Tuesday, September 12th. We were joined by Plainsboro Police Chief Blanchard and Lieutenant McElrath to talk about the school district and community policing partnership and how we continue to work together. The committee reviewed the policy P4420, which is benefits covering non-affiliated support staff, category B, which is recommended for a first reading at tonight's meeting. The committee reviewed one policy, P2419, school threat assessment teams, and its accompanying regulation, R2419, school threat assessment teams, which are recommended for a second reading and approval at tonight's meeting. Next, we learned about referendum updates, many of which we heard about tonight, or actually all of them. Phase 2 construction at the Wyckoff School continues with the renovated media center now open for use by students and staff, and the new parking lot accessible for staff. Renovations of the High School North Culinary Arts Room and Media Center and the Millstone River and Dutch Neck School Media Centers are completed with space occupied by students and staff. Construction of the sensory playground at Town Center continues. The fall athletic season began. Heat and humidity were a challenge during the opening week for all high school sports, but adjustments allowed student athletes to be safe without interruption to competition. WWP United football team is now, I'm adding to this because it wasn't 3-1 when we met, but now it's 3-1, with several very convincing wins, including last week's win against Steiner. This week's game is the High School North homecoming game at High School North versus Cherry Hill East, which starts at 7 p.m. This week's girls volleyball matchup between High School North and High School South, which was at High School North actually yesterday, saw High School North best High School South in 2 close sets. The committee also discussed ongoing conversations with local school districts regarding the possibility of starting a cricket program. The School Start Time Exploration Committee met on Monday, yesterday, to discuss athletics and extracurricular activities and the possible effects of alternative school start times. The School Start Time Exploration Committee will meet in October to finalize recommendations to the Board of Education. The committee reviewed school crisis manuals, which include comprehensive plans, procedures, and mechanisms that provide for safety and security in all district schools. The committee reviewed the MOA with the West Windsor and Plainsboro Police Departments to ensure cooperation between law enforcement and education officials in order to protect the educational environment. The committee discussed district facility rental contracts with community organizations for this current school year per Regulation 7510, use of school facilities. Lastly, we reviewed an updated job description for the district registrar. The committee recommends this job description for approval at tonight's meeting. We will next meet on October 10th. Thanks.
Thank you, Dana. Are there any questions for Dina? All right, we'll go now to the Curriculum Committee report. Loi?
The Curriculum Committee met on September 12th. We began with a presentation by Ms. Heather Shanklin, one of the assistant principals at Millstone River, and her proposal for her doctoral research through Rutgers University. Ms. Shanklin's research will examine lessons learned by educational leaders from the COVID-19 pandemic. She is going to look specifically, her qualitative research aims to answer a couple of questions. First, how do principals describe their efforts to support staff, students, and families during the COVID-19 pandemic? What values and beliefs do principals describe as guiding their decisions and actions during that time? What emotional responses do principals describe as a result of leading during the pandemic? And what did principals learn about themselves as leaders while leading a school during the pandemic? Next, we heard from Ms. Shahnaz Ahmad. She's a math teacher at High School South, and with her proposal for her doctoral pilot research, which focuses on identifying students with math anxiety and examining the causes in students. Her qualitative research will consist of student interviews, which she'll get after obtaining parental consent. So we look forward to hearing back from Ms. Shanklin and Ms. Ahmad about their research implications for our students. Next, the committee continued our conversation around AP testing and policies. Specifically, the committee examined data around the number of AP assessments administered and the significant increase in testing in the last 5 years. The committee discussed the impact on instructional programming, resources, staffing, physical, like logistics, space of administering these large quantities of assessments. And at the next meeting, the administration will be making recommendations to the committee around changes to testing administration, which, if accepted, would be reflected in the program of studies. On the agenda to be voted on tonight are the following. First, the committee recommends submission of the Statement of Assurance for District Professional Development Plan and the District Mentoring Plan for the 2023-2024 school year to the Department of Education pursuant to NJAC 6A:9C-4.2. Second, the committee recommends, with regards to professional development, 8 science teachers and 1 administrator to participate in the Rider University Science Education and Literacy Center's NGSS Assessment Professional Learning Workshop Series at Rider for 2 sessions during this school year at a total group cost of $300. Third, with professional development consultants, the curriculum committee recommends approval for PEI Kids to present teen mental health first aid, an evidence-based training program that teaches teens how to identify, understand, and respond to signs and symptoms of mental health and substance use challenges among friends and peers to high school juniors at a cost not to exceed $15,762. The curriculum committee recommends awarding the request for proposal award to reading and writing workshops. This award for the September 29th, 2023 RFP number 24-01, Reading and Writing Workshop Professional Development Program for a single overall contract to, as I mentioned, Reading and Writing Workshop at a total award cost of $130,000. There were two other bids that were looked at, but the first one was rejected, the proposal from the Children's Literacy Initiative, which was received for August 21st RFP, and that was for substantially exceeding the Board of Education's appropriation for the services as funded by federal funds and is non-negotiable per NJSA 18A:18A-22. And the second proposal was rejected for Axiom Learning for being non-responsive to the bid per NJSA 18A:18A-4.4, or not including required documents. So, next, moving on to field trips. The Curriculum Committee recommends approval of the following overnight field trips. We'll begin with the high school athletics for the WWP United cheerleaders to the National Conference Championship in Orlando from the 7th of February through the 12th of February. The cost of the trip is approximately $1,200 per student. Next, for field trips for High School South. First, Science Olympiad to MIT in Cambridge from January 20th to the 21st. The cost of this trip is approximately $400 per student. Next, Model United Nations to Model UN Conference in Philadelphia in January from the 25th to 28th. The cost of that trip is approximately $500 per student. And again, Model UN to Model UN Conference in Washington, D.C. from the 15th of February through the 18th, and the cost of that trip is also approximately $500 per student. Science Olympiad to Bloomington, Indiana from the 11th of May to the 13th. The cost of this trip is approximately $500 per student. And the Model United Nations to New York from the 9th of November through the 12th, and the cost of that trip is also approximately $500 per student. And next, for the field trip for High School North, Model Congress to Yale University from November 30th through December 3rd. The cost of that trip is approximately $450 per student. And that is it. Yep, that's it for field trips. The committee next meets on Tuesday, October 10th. Thank you.
Thank you, Loy. Are there any questions? Okay, we'll go now to Finance Committee report. Louisa?
The Finance Committee met on September 12th as well. The committee reviewed the monthly financial reports. The administration affirmed that there is enough money to complete the year and that the year is tracking similarly to prior years. There is a motion on the agenda for tonight's meeting to approve a winning bid for the North Ropes Course repair, and there are change orders to our current construction projects on the agenda. 2 are for small increases and 1 is for a decrease in the contract. Also on the agenda are obsolete equipment items for disposal, approval for transportation routes, and approval for travel. Staff reported that the on-site portion of the annual fiscal audit is mostly complete. The audit continues with information being shared electronically. The auditor verbally commented that the records were in great condition and that they were moving along. Staff updated the committee on construction projects in the district. At North, the closeout documents are being completed for the sanitary main. The newly renovated library and culinary arts rooms are being used. At South, the new freezer in the kitchen has been stocked and is being used. At Village, permits have been submitted to West Windsor for the Media Center renovations. At Hawk, permits have also been submitted to West Windsor for the Media Center work. At Town Center, the equipment has been installed in the sensory playground, and we are waiting on the rubber ground surface to be poured. This is scheduled on a day the students will be off. The library renovation is moving along with under-slab electrical work progressing. Flooring and painting will begin shortly. At Wyckoff, in phase 1 of the construction project, the rebalancing report for the new AC unit has been submitted to the township for the review. This is the last remaining item for the final certificate of occupancy. In the phase 2 portion of the construction project, the media center has been turned over to the district and landscaping continues. Teachers are using the new parking lot, gutters and downspouts have been installed, and above ceiling inspections have occurred. The installation of flooring, plumbing fixtures, and exterior aluminum doors has started. The HVAC portion of the renovation is at substantial completion and punch list phase. Next, the committee discussed school opening. Staff reported that the opening days of school felt similar to the opening days prior to the pandemic. With respect to transportation, all students returned safely to their homes relatively smoothly on the first day of school. Of course, there were delays and problems, but overall, it was okay. There were AC issues at High School North, Community Middle, and Millstone due to equipment failure. The problems were mostly localized problems, and standalone units were installed in classrooms where needed. Staff updated the committee on food service and meal services for the first 2 days. The reimbursement rates from the federal government for breakfast have dropped by 2 cents per meal. The reimbursement rate for lunch has increased by 8 cents. At the high schools, we have returned to the schedule where all students have lunch at the same time. Additional vending machines were added in anticipation of this and to reduce foot traffic through hallways during athletic events. Sodexo had 4 new staff members start the school year, with 2 more coming on soon. Communication has continued with building principals regarding their building's food service staffing. The committee will next meet on Tuesday, October 10th.
Thank you, Louisa. Any questions? Okay, so we'll now move to the voting portion of our meeting. Can I have a motion for administration items 1 through 8, Dana and Robin? Any questions or comments? Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. Cheniera.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes. We move now to curriculum items. Can I have a motion for curriculum items 1 through 4, Loy and Pooja? Questions or comments? Okay, Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Cheniera.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes. We now move to finance items. Can I have a motion for finance items 1 through 16 plus the blue addendum? Louisa and Graylin. Any questions or comments?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. Cheniera.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes. We now move to personnel items. Can I have a motion for personnel items 1 through 4 plus the green addendum? Liz and Shweta. Any questions or comments? Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. Cheniera.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes. Right. We now move to the approval of our board minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from our August 29th meeting? Robin and Loy. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay. Any board liaison reports? Okay, Dana?
Okay, I'm the liaison to the West Windsor Rec Commissioners, and we met last Wednesday, and we have some exciting news because I know a lot of people in the community were looking that the recreational basketball program had ceased to exist during the pandemic and didn't come back at all, and so now they're going to restart a program, and there's going to be a program for grades 1 and 2, clinics once a week. There's going to be a program for grades 3 and 4, also once a week. And then they'll be separated by girls and boys. And then there'll be a 5th through 8th grade league with games. These will all be run at Grover. And they're looking for parent volunteers. And, there'll be the 5th and 6th grade will be one league, and the 7th and 8th grade will be another. And it's open to anybody, West Windsor-Plainsboro students. And they also have the wrestling program, which I wanted to share. It's also at Grover, and that meets 2 times a week and matches on Sunday. I hope you'll consider some of these opportunities as they've come back from no longer existing. It should be exciting and give kids an opportunity to develop their skills. Thanks.
Thank you, Dana. Are there any other board liaison reports? Yeah, Liz?
I would say that on behalf of Loy and myself, that, we just really appreciate all the work of the PTSAs and partnering with the school administrations at each building to ensure that there's a, pretty smooth transition and making it a warm, welcoming environment.
Thanks, Liz. Okay, thank you. Any others? Great. Any new business? All right, so that takes us to the second opportunity for public comments. The board invites comments from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement. which will be limited to 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. This public comment period shall be limited to 15 minutes. Are there any public comments? Okay. Hearing none, we'll close this second opportunity for public comments. So can I get a motion to adjourn? Liz and Louisa, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, and good night, everyone.